I didn't protect her. Emily! So what did I miss?
You may run.
I see her sometimes. I talk to her. I can't think about anything else but her.
I miss her too.
You're chasing ghosts. She is gone. And there's nothing that you can do.
Hey,
Keegan, what's going on?
what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. I like your Christmas tree still up.
Dude, it still hasn't gone down. Okay, it's falling apart. It's a real tree, so it's all like shedding and stuff. But
Oh, yeah?
I promised myself, I'm like, wait till football this weekend's over, and then I'm gonna take it down.
That's great.
But yeah, keeping it up. So, where are you at?
Well, right now I'm in the production office at Walker, and you can see all of our faces on the wall there.
That's right. This is legit casting going on right there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so
yeah,
cool.
in Austin, Texas. Where are you?
I'm in Chicago.
So is it cold there right now?
Man, it's a heat wave. It's high 30s out here. So this time of year, it's something to like just, light jacket and all. Although right now, literally, I'm looking out the window and it's starting to snow. I see snowflakes coming down.
Oh, wow. We had a big first snowstorm here in Austin.
Really?
Which is so, yeah, it's an anomaly of sorts, but there was a big, I guess, some polar vortex that came through, and
Wow.
yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was cool.
Damn, that changed the setting of the show. I'm guessing.
I know, right?
So cool to get to talk to you. I recently been seeing you all over. I just recently, not too long ago, watched No Escaped, or that awesome film, and that I spoke to Holland Roden also about the film, and that was a hell of a movie you were in, vlogging through Russia.
Yeah, thank you for watching that, man. That's so cool that you saw it. Did you like
absolutely.
it?
Really enjoyed it. Yeah. I remember seeing Will's first movie. It was Escape Room. So this was kind of like, I'm like, I remember talking to him when it first came out, the Escape Room came out, and this was, I'm like, oh, I loved it. So this was such a cool movie too. So now you're on Walker, so things are good,
Yeah, man. It's a totally different experience being on Walker than No Escape, but But yeah, man, I'm super stoked to be a part of this show. It gets better, honestly, every day.
So I saw the pilot episode, and I'll tell you what, I was pretty surprised about it. Like, I expected kind of like action, fighting, shooting, and it was like literally a heartfelt drama, a grounded drama, more so. I mean, there's a few action scenes, but at least in a pilot, I'm like, wow, this is like a family movie, literally about a family and about a guy going through, suffering through his loss of his wife. I was really blown away and surprised in a good way how grounded this film was. The show was. Tell me if this is something I should expect going forward, or kind of like even the first pilot episode, how did you kind of view it also?
Yeah, I mean, it had changed so much, and it's funny that you mistakenly said the film, because it feels almost filmatic when you're seeing. It's very cinematically shot. We're really, really lucky to be a part of something that has such a grounded, like it's so grounded in the elements that really matter. And I think especially over the quarantine, especially over the last 6 to 8 months, people have started to notice what's really important, and that's family and friends and communities. And even though through separation, it's been this huge amount of awakening of what's really important, I think. And Walker was always something that came from, a real place, that there's no fantastical nature to it. It's real, and it's grounded, and it's so important, and it's heartbreaking. And that's so much drama in just regular life in so many ways.
Yeah, you believe these characters. That's the one thing that stood out to me. It's like, I believe that these are real people, with real struggles, going through everyday life, the pressure of a father and trying to kind of reconnect with his kids. Like, that was I misspoke. You said film, but it felt like a real drama about a guy trying to put his life together, first of all, and the whole kind of fighting crime thing is really secondary. At least that's what I got from the pilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an extraordinary ranger, and he's a really great family man that had something terrible and catastrophic happen. Mm-hmm. And, it's funny is like so many people, when you talk to people and you go, well, I would never do that. Well, it's like you haven't walked in those shoes. And this, in a way, shows what it's like to walk in those boots, to walk in those shoes. For the audience gets a sneak peek, because if you were to just pick up one scene of one side of the story, you'd be like, man, this guy's a jerk. Like, he's totally forgotten about his family. And then you see what's really going on and what he doesn't show his family. You see what the family doesn't show him. You see what is going on in the career. You see what's going on outside of the career. You see the bad guys. And it's so interesting. It's such a wonderfully written experience. It's not even a show, it's an experience.
No question. Like I said, I was completely blown away by the way it really presents itself. And in the way, seeing Jared for years on Supernatural, I'm thinking, is Jensen Ackles going to jump out somewhere? But then this is such a different side of Jared too. And I like that for his career, because he's so synonymous, with Supernatural and the fan base and the length that show's been running. But I really feel like this is a cool move at this point of his career for him to do something more, like, so much more grounded and really the opposite of what he's been known for years. Have you spoken to him about that maybe and seen him in a different light in that way on this show? Because I feel like he's really, he's obviously an adult, now, and he started as a young guy on Supernatural, but he's matured, and the maturity shows on this show.
Yeah. I actually talked to him about it today. I talked to him about it right before we did our TCAs, and I watched the pilot, and it's amazing that you cannot see Sam Winchester at all in there. Jared has such an amazing talent as an actor. He has just such an amazing talent of showing his heart and soul, and making anybody feel like family. So it really is wonderful for us as family on the show to have him be around to kind of facilitate that as Jared. But as Cordell, he's kind of stepped out of who he is in real life into a completely different realm of a character study that I think Supernatural fans will be stunned by how different this is, and in a great way. It's really hard to shake a character. I know this personally.
Oh yeah, really hard to shake. Pretty Little Liars, that's a 7-year run show for that one too. So. And audiences sometimes are not as forgiving into stepping into a different world. I think that in this case, this show is so grounded in reality, and these characters are so fundamentally connected, that I think it's going to shock people at how easily they are able to forget. Really, like you will watch it and then go, he was the guy on Supernatural, when it's over. Yeah,
you'll be like, wait, that's the guy from. I really think I felt that way because I watched Supernatural.
No question. It was a whole different side of him. I actually liked it too, because it showed that he's got so much more range and, things to do. And this hopefully will be a good benchmark in the second portion of his career, And I think this show is a great way to present it in that way. Obviously, you guys really seem connected. I believe the characters completely. This is a real family. These are real people. I'm curious. You guys are all shooting in Austin together. What sort of bonding you guys do? I'm guessing you guys hang out offset too, because it would seem it kind of translates to the screen. What sort of things do you guys do together off screen to kind of bond and formulate this authentic sort of friendship that we see on screen?
Yeah, so we all, you know, get tested regularly, and right now it's every day. So we're all aware of the safety of it. We keep, you know, obviously there's a really tight bubble around the cast. So today was the first day that we ever really all hung out together in the same room at the TCAs. It was pretty remarkable. It was like one of those moments where we're all like, "Oh my God, you're here." Right when the show kind of got picked up and we started to kind of the ball rolling of when we would start shooting, Jared started a text chain or like a text group chat.
Yeah.
And we all keep in contact almost every day, all the time. We're always texting funny stuff to each other, and it feels like a big family. And the family is extended, you know, to Jeff Pierre and to Kobe Bell as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there and obviously Jen Padalecki, and I'm looking at the can you see this, by the way? I'm looking
I can see it now. Yeah, when you turn it,
I'm like awesome. Just making sure I have everybody's name here.
It's maybe you're doing like a police search, you know, a detective case too,
yeah,
with
exactly.
all the pictures on the wall.
Exactly. There's such a camaraderie instantly, and we will, you know, I hung out with Jared right when I got here. I hung out with him, and I remember I walked up to him in his driveway, and he gave me a hug that I felt like I'm an only child. I don't have a brother. I've always wanted an older brother. When I was growing up, I looked up to other people as kind of this sibling thing, but it never was like, from the moment that I met Jared, he called me, we spoke on the phone for 3 hours.
Wow.
It felt instantly like we share so many qualities together, that were so many interests, so many things together that we can talk about for hours. And we hung out, and just, it felt like he was my brother. It was like the brother I always wanted, because I look up to him. He's a family man. He's a good guy. He's well-spoken. He's interesting. And he has such an amazing quality of the fact that he is wildly successful. You would never know it if you met him without any of his affectations around him. And him and Jen are just incredible at the humble nature of their soul and their aura. And so it's been wonderful to hang out with everybody and kind of get to know them. And especially even the kids, you know, Kale and Violet Brinson. They're so fun, and they're cool, and they bring such a wonderful levity to the cast, and such a generation gap there too. You know, they're 18, they're in that 18-year-old bracket where it's like, I don't know what that is. I have never, so they bring a youth to us, and that's fun too.
I was curious, was this like, because I initially, when I heard about the show that it's coming out, I'm thinking like, this is a reboot of the Chuck Norris, you know, Walker, Texas Ranger. I didn't get that sense at all from this first episode. Is there any sort of tie-in, or is that kind of like a natural assumption you make when you hear about the show, or is it supposed to be any sort of tie-in or a complete standalone on its own?
Well, the Texas Rangers, I think, there's like they're famous. The Walker name is famous in affiliation with Texas Rangers. And I know that there was, you know, there's a lot that lent itself to the idea of that, to keep us in Austin, to tell these stories. I know that Jared had talked about his original interest in this, that he came to Anna Fricke and had an interest in the fact that, you know, as law enforcement, and some of the most kind of elite law enforcement is Texas Rangers. And they have such an interesting background in the history of the United States, especially during, you know, a very, very unbiased statement here. It's during the Comanche Indian Wars and surveying Texas, that whole lineage of where they came from and where they are now is completely different. And yet they are still an elite force, and they deal with some pretty crazy stuff. But they're human beings, and they go through, you know, very, very interesting ups and downs of moral compasses, you know, and how you handle things. And that's something that Jared talked about in the TCAs was, you know, you talk to a Texas Ranger and the Texas Ranger, was like, I don't feel good about locking up a 3-year-old in a cage because I have a 3-year-old at home. And like, what are those stories that are not talked about? What are those stories that are not told? And what's interesting is it's incidental to the family life in a way, as much as that's so stressful and dramatic, and what he goes through with his partner. And it's such an amazing chemistry that Lindsay Morgan and Jared have. But what they're going through is incidental to the dramas of his family life. What he's gone through is catastrophic loss, and never really being able to settle with that, never understanding why. And that's so interesting. Yeah, it's a wild ride for anybody who's watching that, and it does echo into, you know, where that show kind of where the roots are, but as you can see, it's not procedural. There's no kung fu. Maybe there's a little bit of kung fu, but
jumping around. Yeah. Lindsay's doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah, she's kicking guns out of people's hands and stuff. Yeah. I was like, all right, I see you. Yeah.
Wanted to add, one thing I've noticed about you mentioned having like a bigger brother figure, you know, that you're become. James Franco seems to be that someone in your life. I was fascinated to kind of trek and went down a rabbit hole, and you've done almost all of your films with him in some sort of involvement, directing, acting opposite. Tell me how this whole friendship and connection started, because I found that fascinating. Wanted to ask you about what's kind of your relationship with James Franco, because it's really, it's predates kind of to your start in the industry.
Yeah, James was really, really, you know, I always looked to James as somebody who really cared about the craft. And back when I was doing PLL, I was really interested. I was going to acting classes with Larry Moss and Nancy Banks and auditing acting classes. I always wanted to get better. I still want to get better. And James was pretty instrumental in always including me and in his projects that were usually passion projects, things that he felt were really important to share in a way with his voice. Because to be honest, I mean, I don't think, you know, people would have greenlit The Sound and the Fury if it wasn't James Franco. And he very much knew that in cinema history, he has a responsibility to tell stories and bring them to light, bring them to new eyes. And he was always very inclusive of me and a lot of my friends. And I just really, I admired him a lot. I admired his workflow. I also was a bit stunned at how he was able to operate on no sleep. He would go and shoot, you know, The Deuce or whatever, and then he would go and we would do a movie together, and it'd be like, dude, when are you sleeping?
And he's teaching too. He was teaching at right? And NYU too. So,
yeah, he was teaching. Yeah, it just a remarkably resilient mindset. And I only ever saw him in that zone where he was just so busy all the time. That's all I ever saw him. He was either listening to an audiobook, reading some book while he's listening to it, directing, like the man didn't even have time to breathe. So I only ever experienced him in those moments, but he was extremely thoughtful to include me in those things. I haven't talked to him for years, but actually I did text with him, and he's doing, you know, he's living his life, and I think he finally had time to take a bit of a break from everything. Yeah, it was an amazing experience to work with him. It taught me a lot of things to do and a lot of things to be weary of doing, because it might burn you out very quickly.
Mm-hmm. As you embark now on you know, Walker, another series, I mean, your run on Pretty Little Liars was, I mean, that's significant. You had 7 years of a show, and you know, the relationships, and that was kind of your big, you know, in a sense, big break in this industry that led you to where you are now in a lot of ways. Do you still keep in touch with the cast? How is your relationship with the people from the show still? And do you kind of look back at what you guys had, you know, in a sense, now that it's all over and kind of few years have passed since?
Yeah, no, I very much love everybody I worked with. Obviously, as time grows, so do the distances between, and especially because of quarantine. I know Troyan had a child, and I went to her wedding, and I've been very much, involved through the internet with, all kinds. Like I just like 3 days, like maybe it was like last week, I got like a random FaceTime call while I was at work. Like I think Ian and Shay were trying to call me for like an hour, and it turns out that they were both wasted. They were drunk doing Shay's YouTube on like, it was like Christmas cocktails, and then they were making gingerbread houses, but they were just totally wasted, trying to spam call me. I didn't know I was working. And then afterwards I was like, what's going on? And then I saw the video. I was like, oh, okay. So we're very much all still a part of each other's orbits, and so supportive of everybody within there and within that team and that camp of people. And I love them. I grew up with them. It's crazy. It's like, I literally that's why I said camp. I literally look at it as summer camp in a way. Like I had so much fun on that show. And I'm having just as much fun on Walker, but I think in a more adult way, because now I'm an older guy, and I've learned a lot, and I'm able to also be more present during this. I felt like Pretty Little Liars was such a rocket ship, and now I'm able to be very present in my career. And but yeah, still keep in contact, still keep in touch, and it was such a wild ride. I think about it sometimes as if it was just like a dream,
Finally gonna let you go on. I want to know, what are some of your interests and hobbies? I always love finding that out from different actors or directors I talk to, because I get all sort of cool answers and I never expect. But what are some things you like to do, Keegan, when you're away from the set, before quarantine, I guess I'd say, or maybe you developed something new, but passion and hobbies or interests that you have outside?
Yeah, I've gotten really into coffee.
Really?
Okay. I love photography first and foremost as a hobby. Acting as a hobby is really wonderful. When it's not professional, it's fun. But recently I've gotten really into like engineering and coffee and espresso preparation. I got myself a prosumer machine.
Damn.
And it's, talk about a concatenation of events that lead to one moment that could be like perfect. And I don't know if you're into coffee or any viewership understands this, but you're only as strong as your weakest link when you're making an espresso, and everything is important. So like even forget about tamping and distributing. It's like you have to have your grind setting right, but then you got to make sure your beans are roasted correctly. They can't be roasted too early. They have, because you get CO2 in the beans. They can't be too stale, or you have to grind them so fine that they're like gray. They come out gray, and you get the crema really matters. All these things matter, but the extraction rate matters. The time matters. The quality of the water, the heat of the water. All of these things matter.
It's literally a science,
It's science, yeah. And I've gotten so deep into that. I've also gotten really deep into watches, which I share with Jared Padalecki, a huge passion in horology. And we're both nerds that love Hodinkee. We love watches. We love anything that has to do with the watch world, even though that's a pretty volatile statement to some people, but I love the watch world. I've gotten really into Pokemon cards.
Really?
Because my buddy Brett Dyer, he was on Jane the Virgin, another CW show, and recently on Schooled. He got really into Pokemon cards and is a sleeper seller of Pokemon cards. Like he has pretty much a rivaling collection to Logan Paul. And another friend of mine, Logan Paul, got me really into, and I actually met Logan because of Follow Me, because of that vlogger movie. But Logan's incredibly into Pokemon cards, and really into meditation recently. That's been a great thing. Being present, like breathing techniques, Wim Hof doing cold therapy. Yeah, that and fitness, any kind of fitness stuff has been a big deal in my life as well, like understanding fitness and how it plays a role. Yeah.
You are so well-rounded, man. I learned a ton about
thanks,
you.
Man.
That's so cool to hear. I love that.
It honestly has been, it's been a great time during quarantine, and also gardening, by the way. I got really into gardening, which was so weird. I spent a lot of time, so
tomatoes. I'm growing tomatoes.
Dude, it's the best thing is to grow a tomato. And like, I got a composter. I got one of those Vitamix FC50 food composters, so I don't waste any food anymore. And it makes it so that the garden just explodes with nutrient dense soil. And that's wonderful. I'm not doing an ad. This is like really my life. I'm so into it. And my mom has been really instrumental in bringing me into the forest. I really love like nature. I've been able to really like get into dual sport motorcycling and exploring tons of areas around where I live that I've never been able to get to because I didn't have the right way of getting through these little single tracks across the Sequoia National Forest. And getting into ornithology, which was Ian Harding's doing, because he's literally an 85-year-old man trapped in a younger man's body, but got me really into bird spotting, to birding, and living in being in Austin is really wonderful because there's so many interesting birds out here in these green belts. So
I just got a bird feeder myself, and I literally just got picked up bird food on the way before this interview. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great.
That's so cool. I know you got to run. I had a blast talking to you, Key. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. This is cool. I really enjoyed the show. It was. I'm excited for everyone to check it out. Can't wait to write a review. So tell all your castmates that at least one person's loving it, and to keep it up because you guys are onto something really cool.
Thanks, man. It means a lot coming from you, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the show. And thanks for your questions. So good, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hope to catch up with you down the road later on in the season. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely, Jim. Thank you so much, man.
I think I know you. You the ranger with the dead wife?
What did you say?
Texas Ranger's wife bites a bullet down by the border.
Enough! You got a sad story, I get that. And I got your back, that is my job. But I need to know that you have mine.
Go tell the long-term liar.
You are under arrest. It's about your brother. He requested the drone footage of the night that Emily died.
Tell them they got to cut them down.
You hear me when I say this. You will lose everything.
Walker, series premiere Thursday, January 21st. Stream free next day only on the CW app.